Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Tim, trader at the Camp Compound, a company of professional traders where we show you why, where, when and how we invest. Let's get right to it. In front of us we have the Bitcoin US dollar 1-day chart, and today we will be talking about Bitcoin and Ethereum because those two are the reason that the rest of the markets make most of their moves, and we will be going through some of our positions. So let's get to it. Bitcoin has been quite interesting of late. We've been talking about its apparent weakness, and part of that is the time count idea. This means that Bitcoin has been stuck under a major resistance, this one between 28,800 and 32,200. Why is this a major resistance? Because in 2021 it was our first retrace after the insane move up. Then we came back there after our all-time high, as you can see here, and then again when we came back after our second all-time high. So you see, this is just a very psychological level for traders. Because when we fall through the floor, it becomes the ceiling, and when we go through the ceiling, it becomes the new floor. That is the fundamental law about markets. So, currently we're stuck under the ceiling. And if Bitcoin takes a certain amount of time stuck under that ceiling without being able to break through, then after a time, generally 5 to 7 days, depending a little bit on the broader, trend, etc., then the path of least resistance turns to the downside, and that is what we're currently seeing with the higher highs slowly turning into lower highs. Especially on the 4-hour chart, you can see that really well, that Bitcoin just kind of lost its momentum slowly and is now trying to break through this support here instead. So now we are trying to break this temporary floor that we've made. We've also already hit it 3 times, 1, 2, and 3. You could say 4 with today, but I still see that as the same move here. And that means that on the next pass through, we will have a, let's say, 50 to 60% chance of breaking through. Generally speaking, on the third try to break, you have a 50-50 chance that it continues on, and on the fourth try, it becomes 60%, etc., etc. That is kind of how that goes, how that continues on in the market, although you never quite reach 100% because there are no certainties, only probabilities, especially in the markets. Now, when we do fall through, if that is the case, the next area that we want to look at is 24,200 to 25,200. Why is this the next important zone? Because for the same reason that the previous important zone is important, it's a psychological level. Because we broke through 28,800 on the 22nd of June, then we went all the way back down to 18,000 or 17,000 right here. And then when we came back up, we peaked out at 25,200. And you can see that we had some issues before around 24,200. So again, it's a psychological level. And that's also what you see when we finally came back after the whole FTX crash, fiasco, etc. We came to the 24,200 and were rejected because it's a psychological level. We came to the 25,200, were rejected because it's a psychological level. And now we are back up here. This is just a slightly smaller one than the huge one spanning multiple years that we have here. Now, aside from this time count, the fact that Bitcoin just took too long to break, we also see a rise in price, this orange line right here, and a decline in the RSI, which we've been talking about for a long time, relative strength index, and that means that bulls have overextended a bit too much. The relative strength of the bull has been going down, meaning that this price action is not as sustainable and there's not as much momentum behind it, which generally leads to a fallback. So those are kind of the levels that we're looking at. If we do break through the 24,200 as well, we are next looking at 22,000. We are currently also nicely in profit on a Bitcoin short, so it would not be too bad if we see a further fall. Alright, so that is what we currently have in Bitcoin. Let's move on to Ethereum. We also still have a short in Ethereum. Ethereum had a bit of a better day today, better than expected, if I'm very honest. We rallied back up to the top of this channel right here, and also to its previous resistance, or the current resistance at 1780. If we have a quick peek at the 4-hour chart, then you see that there was a clear breakdown candle, and then an in spirit of bull flag, or bear flag in this case, back up, which it managed to break out of, which is actually a very strong sign. If we now manage to close above the high of this candle right here, so let's say 1770, that would actually mean that this breakdown candle is invalidated, and we could try again to break through the resistance here at 1820. That is kind of where we are at with Ethereum. If we do see a rejection, then there's a good chance that we will still move all the way back down to the lower part of this upward channel at around 1570 to 1580. That is kind of how these patterns work, and we will see this could still be a bearish retest because we do have a confluence of this upward trend line right here, this resistance, and the general resistance of 1780. And if trend lines converge, that point where they cross is an extra strong support or resistance. So we will see if Ethereum has the strength and the momentum to break through. Of course, we'll see tomorrow when we go over it again. So that is that for Ethereum. If Ethereum does manage to break through properly, this will probably rally all the altcoins as well, as Ethereum is generally a proxy for the altcoin market. Now, that being said, let's have a quick look at our current positions, or some of them, like Ethereum Bitcoin. We saw that Ethereum Bitcoin was in a compression pattern. Generally, that means we've had a move down and then compression. We usually continue another leg down about as long, or about 3/4 as long as the previous one. But Ethereum has actually been very strong relative to Bitcoin and managed to break out. Of course, the day is not finished yet. We still have 5 hours. We could fall all the way back and still continue downwards. If that is the case, we probably will add to our position with, let's say, 0.058 right here, and then 0.054 right about here. Those are the next important levels that we see, and otherwise we will probably rush back up towards our current entry, or average entry, at 0.066. So that is what we're seeing here. We could break through and then try 0.068 approximately. So that is where we're currently at with Ethereum Bitcoin. If we do reach that 0.068, we will probably not get out yet, as this is a very favorable position if we look back, and we kind of want to hold that for a while to earn as much Bitcoin as we can over the time to come. Of course, we have our Ethereum short, and we do see that Ethereum is kind of losing some momentum, as we talked about. We see that here as well. There's a bit of a downward trend line starting, which is not a problem. And then we could also just here kind of see that 1570 area right around here. We could see a quick retrace to that before we have a shortfall in the pattern, in this little megaphone pattern. Because there's multiple ways to look at the market. I want to show you that as well by first going over the initial Ethereum chart that I use the most, and then this one here, now that we have a position open anyway, so that you can kind of get a feel for different ways to look at it, which is important. It's always good to flex your trader's eye a bit. So if we do break out of this bull pattern, there's a good chance we'll move towards that 2,400, maybe 2,500 area if we manage to break 2,000. That is, of course, for multiple reasons, a strong psychological level. If not just because it's a nice and round number, that is actually a very strong reason for people to sell, because it's a nice round number. And all the orders tend to conglomerate. That's a tougher word than I thought it was. Around nice and round numbers. So that is what we're seeing there. AVAX we actually ended. I should update this little section here actually. The Bitcoin short, of course, where we have the same thing. We have the 1, 2, 3 tap that we're currently seeing, and this little bow right here is a nice rounded top if we do manage to break through. STX did perfectly what it had to do. We might actually see a bit of a whatchamacallit, head and shoulders. Not really, it's not steep enough. But otherwise, that would be about, yeah, we would need a bounce right around now of about this high. And then we could continue onwards. But we will see if that is actually the case. Because we could see, actually, now that I'm looking at it a bit better, we do see a different sort of head and shoulders forming. Because here we have the left shoulder, the head right here, and then we would have to go back to about this area here and then continue back up before we could enter. And then, since this is about the range that we have, we would have a target of approximately, if we see a break like this, 24 cents. That is quite a steep drop, but this is a bit of a, well, actually it's pretty big. But it is a pretty wild coin, as you can see, so that is not too strange. So that is something to keep in mind. Let's also have a look at a couple of extra coins now that we're here. I'm a big fan of Cake, still in its major consolidation. You can see it started in June 2022 and it's still consolidating, still not sure where it wants to go, and that could continue on until June of 2023 before Cake finally decides whether it wants to continue up or down. But for now, down is slightly favored because of the starting area or the starting way of this coin, and that could definitely bring us back down for quite a bit further. So that is what we're seeing there. I also really like checking AVE because it is trading just beautifully. You see this perfect MA right here. You have an M moving like this, and then a slight bounce back up, which is called the A. Not all of these patterns are very hard. You see an M form, you see an A form. That's an MA pattern. Nice. Generally a very trustworthy pattern as well. Once this support here breaks, there's a good chance that we'll move back up to this supporting trend line that we see here. So kind of around 54. That could be an interesting short, depending on what the market does at that point. Would be about 16%. We would probably close it somewhere here around the 10%. And then look for a new entry around this trend line for a long back up towards the top of this kind of small range that has formed. So that is it for tonight. Hopefully you have a bit of an idea of what is going on and how to continue onwards, a couple of coins to look at, and in the meantime I will see you all in the next one. Keep calm, keep cool, and keep compounding. Bye bye.